morning and welcome to History Help channel. Today we will be here we are focused on the section historiography. So the topic which we are going to cover in the historiography is Greek historiography, and we are going to learn a lot about Greek historiographers. In this slideshow, we will learn about Herodotus. So who is Herodotus? So Herodotus is known as the father of history. The reason is he was the connection between the logographers of the past and historians in the future. So up till now, before 6th century BC, we studied that Greeks was completely poetry age, the epic age, and then there were bards and ballads who used to enact the local history. But with coming of Herodotus, it became more of written history. So he is known as father of history. So he was born in Ionia in 480 BC. He was influenced by Homer. Who was Homer? Homer is the great poet of the epic ages who wrote Iliad and Odyssey. This we learned in our previous lesson. So he was influenced by the poems of Homer. He was also influenced by Hecataeus, whom we saw in the last lesson. He was responsible for writing about the Persian Empire. So he was influenced by both of Homer and Hecataeus. Hecataeus, he was influenced with the prose writing. Prose writing means writing in a written language, the spoken language, whatever you write. What are the significance of Herodotus was he wrote history, and he had traveled widely. He had traveled widely to places like Thrace, Egypt, Babylon, etc. So he had a lot of information about the political developments in these states. So he was able to write his best. After traveling a lot, he came back to Athens, but he realized that there was a lot of trouble in Athens. So he went back again, and he went to Somos, a place called Somos. Finally, when things settled down in Athens, he came back to Athens, and he was in the court of the king was Pericles. He lived in the court of Pericles. After some time, he went to Turi, which was in Italy, and he died there only in 430 BC. So you can see that his time period was between 480 to 430 BC. Okay, this is the image of Herodotus. So when Herodotus was living, there were a lot of wars happening. So one of the major wars was between Persia and Greece, and this is what he has written. So let's take a little bit more. Let us go a bit more in depth to his work. So what was his work? His work was known as history. He had named his book itself as history. So, or the history, as I said, it was between the Greek and Persians. It was majorly about the Persian wars. So you see, I have an image on the right. So on the right you have Persians. This one onslaught. The left you have the Greeks. So back then Greek was having a number of states like Athens, Sparta, and all. And Persians were just beginning, had already begun to establish their empire in Egypt, Babylon, Asia, and all that, and they were slowly overcoming other states. So his work history, Herodotus' work history, is actually not one book; it is 9 books, and each book is named after a Greek goddess. So the goddess of history is Clio, okay, in Greek. The goddess of art is Thyla, and the goddess of science is Erato. So similarly, we have goddesses of philosophy and other subjects. Like we have in India, goddess of wealth, goddess of knowledge. Similarly, Greek too had different goddesses. So he named each of the books in different goddesses. So his first five books are about the conflicts that were taking place in the east and that were taking place in the west. So what was happening? What was Persians doing? Who were the kings? And what was happening in Greece? So all the things that were there, that is what he has written in his first five books. His sixth book is about a revolt that took place in Ionia. So there is a revolt that happened in Ionia. Greeks supported that revolt, which was against Persia. And then there was a campaign or a battle called Marathon between Greeks and Persians, and where Greek won its battle. So that's the sixth book is all about that. The last three books, so I had told you it was nine books, right? So the last three books were the subsequent battles between Persians and Greeks. There were a lot of battles fought. So all those details are there in these three books. So this book is a very systematic work, all the nine books. And if he was not there, then we wouldn't have known much about the either the Persians or the Greece. So that is what makes his work very important, and his work itself is very systematic. So let us take a bit more look deeper. Let us go deeper into it. So he is known as the father of history. Why? Let us take a look at his books. So that these books that he wrote was very systematic. He wrote about geography in his history book. He wrote about chronology. He wrote about history. So he has talked about a lot of states, Greek states like Lydia, Egypt. Then he's written about Egypt, Babylon, Scythia. So he has described the geography and all that in his book history. Chronology. So I told you earlier, he talks about Persia, its kings. He comes back to Greek. So how the war happened, before the war, what happened, after, how the battles took place. So he has written focusing on the timeline or the chronology. And coming back to history, he has written a lot about the kings of Persia. He has also written about Athens, Sparta, which are all Greek states. So his book is completely systematic. So, as already told, it gives the history of ancient Greece and Persia. So, when writing the book history, he has used sources. This is very important. See, in 480 BC, if you talk about using sources, that itself is very significant. So he has used the treaties of war, and he has used the declaration of war documents, all that he has read through and written his book history. He has also observed, he has met travelers, he traveled widely, he talked with priests, and then he has written his book. That makes his book very factual. Okay, so until then, uh, history was not given so much importance. There was no, but under Herodotus, he used his sources. He also used his powers of observation. He has written, as I said earlier, comprehensive history of both Persia and Greece. So it's a complete book on both the histories he has written. For example, let us take a look. Okay, see, the first emperor was this Croesus, who was the rather than empire, we can say he was the first prince of Asia. So he has started with Croesus, who attacked the kingdom of Lydia. So he has written about Croesus. Then he's talked about the greatness of him and how he fell. All that he has written. Okay. Then he has talked about the rise and fall of Medina Empire, which came after the fall of Kingdom of Lydia. That was by Croesus. After fall of Medina Empire, then he talks about another Persian king, Cyrus. So the Achaemenid Empire was during the reign of Cyrus. So he talks about Cyrus. Then he talks about Cambyses, who occupied Asia and Egypt. Then after his Cambyses' death, he talks about Darius, who were all later rulers of Persia. Then he talks about Xerxes. So all these tried to expand the Persian Empire and take over Greek states. So he has talked about all these kings in detail, right? Okay. Then all his books are organized into sections. So he's divided into sections. First sections will concentrate on all these kings: Cyrus, Cambyses, Di- and Darius. Second section will focus on Xerxes. Third section will be on the battle between Greece and Persia. So he has kind of organized it in a section, and he has moved from the Asia part, from West Asia to East Europe to Greek. So it is like one central flow from one place to another. He has moved until he has come to do battle. So I told you, right? So he's talked about all this. And then, so under him, history became a discipline. So until then, it was just a narrative or a story or an epic or a poem. But under Herodotus, it was made as a discipline. Okay. So that is why he is known as the father of history. So let's talk a little bit more about Herodotus. So he had first-hand information. As said earlier, he himself traveled, observed, talked with everybody. So he had first-hand information. He was like the Arabs. The Arabs are known for writing very accurate information. Similarly, Herodotus also traveled widely to write his history. There is unity in work and consistency and continuity. So, unity in work, I told you, he moves from West Asia to East Europe and then to Greek, right? So, there is unity in his work. Again, third one, it's a powerful style. So, his narrative is very interesting and amusing. So, it's full of stories, and there are a lot of folk tales, poems from the epic age that he has included. So, that makes his reading very interesting. What else? He believed in supernatural forces. He says that the king Xerxes had struggled very hard, but there was something called destiny. So he has written about such things. Okay, so that is why there was a belief in supernatural. So from Herodotus, historical writing actually began. He made the narrative interesting. He started writing about history. Still, he had some defects. What were the defects in his work? He was majorly a storyteller. So he was like he used to write a lot of stories. All of them were not truth. He just believed what others said, and he also wrote. Some parts of his book history has these kind of storytelling. He was prejudiced. So obviously, Herodotus was from the Greek states, so he was prejudiced towards Greek. So, though he did not ignore Persia, he still was in favor of Athens. That is where he was living, right? So, that is why. And he was crazy for his style. So, he focused more on his narration, his storytelling styles, that his language and all. So, he was more focused on the history's literature part rather than facts or truth in history. So, he was crazy for his style. Sometimes what happened, he was telling a lot about Persians and Greeks. So he would try to talk about somebody, then he'll jump to some other topic, geography probably, then come back to the person again. So that's he was not continuous throughout. So he used to jump to numerous things. That is why the Greek historian Thucydides, who was the contemporary of Herodotus, says that Herodotus was trying to do too much. That is why this thing has happened. He lacked historical criticism, so he just believed in some of the tales. He was not balanced while telling about things. Moreover, he did not know Persian language and Egypt language, so he did not have the full information about the Persians while writing. So he was not very accurate. So this ends the chapter on Herodotus. The questions that are normally asked is examine the contributions made by Herodotus for development of historiography. So in the next slide, we will look into other Greek historiographers like Thucydides and uh, Xenophon, Polybius, and then we will close the Greek historiography topic. Thank you.